Bill Samuels is the founder of New York People's Convention, and it will be on the ballot. Should we have a constitutional convention in New York State? Bill Samuels, good morning. Thanks for coming on. You believe clearly that we should.
Well, I got to tell you, Bill, it's tough to follow Brandon. Maybe we better talk about the Yankees.
Yeah, it is.
Constitutional convention.
It's not easy. You're absolutely right there.
Yeah, what's the over-under that this gets passed?
That's a good point.
Yes, I would say it's even right now. It's going to be very close.
So, we've heard from so many different people and organizations saying, you got to vote no on this. Politicians, local politicians saying they're voting no on this. And the fear is that this is just going to be, we're going to be getting nothing but political people involved in the decision-making process. They could get into things that they can't get into now, like the pension fund, et cetera, et cetera. What's the upside?
Well, first of all, we'll talk about the no vote at some point, but a lot of these facts just aren't correct. But let me give you an example.
Yeah.
My grandparents are from Fulton. I grew up in Hopewell. Do you know where Hopewell is?
I do not know. I don't know where Hopewell is.
It's between Canandaigua and Geneva.
All right. My wife was born in Canandaigua, so she would know that area. Yeah.
And while I'm a Democrat, I'm a fan of Brian Culp, who's also from Canandaigua. Mm-hmm. So here's one example. New York State has some of the highest property taxes in the country. There are 49 states that consolidate Medicaid expenses and pay the balance at the state. New York State is the only state that allocates $2.2 billion to upstate New York in Medicaid, to the counties. A constitutional convention could do what 1967 attempted to do and say there shall be no local share of Medicaid. That lowers property taxes in the counties in New York by 49%. If you want business to grow in upstate New York, you have to lower property taxes. Governor Cuomo and the bosses in the legislature will never do that. Every other state has made the change, and that is one of my top priorities for what I call a people's convention. We have had 9 people's conventions in the history of the state. Not one of them hasn't been constructive. So if you're happy with Albany and you're happy of Andrew Cuomo going into a back room with 3 other men and just making decisions with no hearings, great, vote no. But if you want change and you want business growth, you got to say yes. I see almost no risk.
What do you think, though, Bill? What would make this one any different? You're saying that we really haven't had change. It hasn't worked out. 1967, it would have been nice if it worked out properly, but it didn't. What's to say this is going to be any better?
Well, I think a lot's to say. We have had nothing but corruption. In 2018, we'll have another trial of Silver, another trial of Skelos. We'll have a trial of Andrew's best friend who is indicted. We have really everything to gain, nothing to lose.
Right.
In 67, they made a mistake. They bashed everything together, and it was voted no. In 38, they separated the proposals, which is what will happen this year. And a lot of things were passed. All of labor, and I should state I'm pro-labor, all of labor's good protections, like in pensions, were passed in a people's convention. All of the environmental protections, which are not sufficient, but the ones we have, were passed in a constitutional convention. Unfortunately, the no vote, and we can get into this, has been putting out facts that are not true.
Right. Why not just, we have the ability to amend the Constitution and do it through a democratic process. Why do you tear everything up and want to start all over again?
Well, first, you're not tearing everything up. We've had 9 of these, and there's not one of them that has been dominated by either the right or the left. I believe that we'll elect both Democrats and Republicans. I think the two will work well together, okay? And because it's a unicameral situation and they're not running for election. But Bill, let's just look at the last 20 years. Let's look at the most recent Constitutional Convention. The legislature changes a thing called a message of necessity. Now, what is that? They go in a back room 2 days before all of the votes. The bosses decide what to do, and it used to be they had to print the bills. So at least that sat on the desk of the legislators. Constitutional amendment in 2014, we can just send an email, run down to the floor, and the bosses make everybody vote. That was a 2014 constitutional amendment. Redistricting. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I'm redistricting is another classic example of horrific policy. You're absolutely right. But I like how you're using bosses and back rooms. You're really using the same tactics that the no people are using, by the way, and with some of your language. I've never been to one of those back rooms, but I'm sure it's smoky. Smoke-filled.
Well, Bill, that's true. But the fact is, let's look at the no arguments. One, people will lose their pensions. It's a lie. When the pension reforms were passed in 1938, they were contractual, very unusual. Under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, how about that?
Yeah.
In the U.S. Constitution, you cannot change the existing constitutions. There is no risk. It's an absolute falsehood that they're peddling. And in fact, if anything, we should improve pension protection in the governmental agencies because it protects government workers but not authority workers. But let me tell you the real problem in pensions. 60% of our workers that aren't in unions today have nothing, no pensions. When I was last in Canandaigua, Brian Kolb and I had one of those meetings where we discussed things.
Yeah. All
of my friends worked for Kodak, and they all had defined benefit pensions. Their kids are getting 1099s, no health care. And we came up with a very innovative way to solve this. So the real issue is not to take union pensions away. One, it can't be done legally. I've done polls. Nobody's for that. But what people are for is allowing the 60% that have no pensions some type of easy access so they can save. So the pension thing is a lie.
All right.
Now, in terms of of course all the legislators are against it. We're taking the power from Andrew Cuomo, and I'm not a fan, from the legislature, and we're giving it to the people. When the suggestions are made by the delegates, they don't make decisions. They don't go back to the legislature. They ask you and me to vote on them.
Yeah.
So I think we got nothing to lose.
Manasseh has the last question.
Yeah, let me ask you. I want to go back to the Medicare thing because this actually came up, if I'm not mistaken, the House of Representatives in their bill would have said, New York State, you pay the Medicare bill, it takes it off the counties.
Right.
We had a discussion when that happened. I want you to weigh in on this bill. Do you agree with this? Because this is what we kind of concluded. If New York State pays the Medicaid bill and takes it away from counties, they're just going to lump a different bill on the counties. At the end of the day,
same sand it's the same sand in the hourglass.
Is
You're
it
just
right
tipping
pocket
it to the other
or
side.
left pocket?
That's why we need a constitutional convention. Unfunded mandates coming out of the bosses and giving it to Fulton, New York, and giving it to Rochester, New York, is wrong. Albany has a $160 billion budget. Lowering the property taxes in Medicaid 49% is only $2.2 billion. I could go to Albany, and so could you, over 3 years, find $730 million a year, and I dare them to try to throw it back to the counties. That's what's wrong with Albany.
Right.
They can't do it. They got to find it through efficiencies and growth.
All right, Bill Samuels is the founder of New York People's Convention. And, William, we'd like to have you come back on again before Election Day, and maybe we can bring your counterpart on at the same time. It might be an interesting debate.
That'd be great. I'd love to do it.
And what's your website?
Back and forth.
Go to nypeoplesconvention.org.
Okay. Bill Samuels, thanks for the time here this morning. We'll do it again.
Oh, my pleasure, Bill. And the Yankees are going to beat Cleveland.
Okay, that would be good, I think. So
Wishful thinking.
great for the bars and the restaurants in town. So, all right, thanks so much.